Hi, I'm Robbie Bobby, and today's topic is Step 1, Powerless over what exactly? I know this goes without saying, but everything I say here is just my opinion, so take what you like and leave the rest. I'm going to start this discussion by looking at Step 1 through the lens of Alcoholics Anonymous, since they invented the steps. Step 1 in AA reads as follows. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. What does powerless over alcohol mean in this step? It means powerless to control one's drinking. A non-alcoholic can, by and large, set limits on their drinking. An alcoholic can also set limits, but he won't respect them. Why? Because after the first drink, he's not the same person who set the limit, and he's off to the races, as they say. The only option an alcoholic has is to stop drinking altogether, and many do, permanently. That is, one day at a time. Isn't that interesting? An alcoholic may battle alcohol for decades, completely unable to control it, and then, one day, admit he is powerless and never pick up a drink again. In this context, these three variations have the same meaning. We admitted we were powerless to control our drinking. We admitted we were powerless over our drinking. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Here's another observation I'd like to make. If Joe is powerless over alcohol, that does not imply that alcohol has power over Joe. If that were the case, then the situation would truly be hopeless, because Joe is powerless over alcohol. They are, in fact, mutually powerless over each other. Joe's problem is not in the bottle of alcohol. Joe's problem is in Joe. That is what steps 2 through 12 address. The underlying problem, or spiritual malady. The purpose of Step 1 is to stop drinking long enough to embrace recovery and start healing. If you need to pause the video to let this sink in, please do. Okay, let's move over to Al-anon, a sister fellowship for those affected by another person's drinking. In other words, for codependence. In the early days of AA, which was pre-Al-anon, family members would have their own meetings, as it were, often based on passages from the Big Book of AA, as it explained the nature of the disease of alcoholism, which was a new concept, and had a chapter titled Two Wives. By the way, that's T-O, not T-W-O, just to be clear. Also, one titled The Family Afterward. These meetings were actually the precursor to Al-anon. So, when Al-anon was formed 12 years later, these folks were already familiar and comfortable with the 12 steps of AA and adopted them pretty much word for word, which is why Step 1 in Al-anon reads exactly the same as in AA. This sometimes leads to confusion. Is the Al-anon really powerless over alcohol? I suppose the answer to that question is yes, because millions of Al-anons have admitted they're powerless over alcohol. However, I think it's fair to say their experience is different. The AA's relationship with alcohol is more direct, while the Al-anons is more indirect, or secondary. There are two prevailing interpretations to this step. One is that Al-anons are powerless over the alcoholic. The other is that Al-anons are powerless over alcoholism. Certainly they're not powerless over alcohol in the same way that an alcoholic is. However, at the end of the day, the person taking the step can decide for himself or herself whether they're powerless over alcohol, alcoholism, the alcoholic, or all three. In my opinion, The interpretation, powerless over the alcoholic, parallels nicely with the AA program. As I said earlier, alcoholics are able to stop drinking. Go to any open AA meeting and you'll witness this firsthand. They can also start. What they can't do is in between. They can't control or manage their drinking. They can't dabble, as it were. Another way to phrase this is that alcoholics don't control drinking. Drinking controls them. As such, their lives become unmanageable when they try to. The same holds true for the Al-anon. As an Al-anon in recovery, I believe that if I attempted to control just a little, that would be the equivalent to an alcoholic in recovery thinking he could have just one drink. We would both be off to the races. Another parallel I would like to mention is that an Al-anon admitting they are powerless over an alcoholic does not imply the alcoholic has power over the Al-anon. They are mutually powerless over each other. I remember back when I would obsess endlessly over my qualifier and then blame him for my stress and worry, as if he was causing it. No, my problem never resided in my qualifier. It resided in me. That is what steps 2 through 12 address. The underlying problem or spiritual malady inside myself. The purpose of step 1 is to stop controlling and obsessing long enough to embrace recovery and start healing. Everything discussed so far has to do with admitting we're powerless over what brought us into program. Alcohol, alcoholism, or the alcoholic. In a few more steps, we're asked to look honestly at our character defects, then enlist the help of a God of our understanding to take them. This, I believe, is a tacit admission that we are powerless over our defects as well. Expanding powerlessness is a sign of expanding recovery. I'm Robbie Bobby. Thank you for listening, and keep coming back. And please hit the like button or my inner child will get upset. Thank you.